Good afternoon. Welcome to the international section. So we have 6 presentations. We start in Germany, then we move to Croatia, go back to Hungary, then we have a little trip to Fordham, New York, and then we end in Georgia. And our first 15 minutes presenters will be Professor Baumann and Mrs. Daniela Londoño Quintero on the topic, how can robots and AI facilitate and promote dignified elderly care? Professor Baumann and Ms. Laura, you have 15 minutes and maybe an extra minute, but not much more than that. Please, the floor is yours. We're happy to have you with us.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and joy to talk to you in this wonderful conference together with Mrs. Londoño Quintero about the question, how can robots and AI facilitate and promote dignified elderly care? We will present a few basic assumptions for our work. We will present potential scenarios of such nursing by robots, and we will talk about the acceptance of such robotics by clients and nurses. Let me first start with the first basic assumption about the concept of care ecology as the frame of all our work. While ecology is the science of the interrelationships between living beings and their environment, in whose household the foundations of human life are also established and secured, care ecology focuses on the totality of the interrelationships between living beings and their environments in 2 ways. First, in order to ensure the preservation and safeguarding of these life-promoting interrelationships, and second, also the interrelationships between people themselves, so that these are not geared towards mutual exploitation at micro, meso, and macro level, but towards the common good of all and each individual human being, that is, towards a dignified life of all and each human being. This includes taking care of the good enough development and unfolding of the capacity for care and love of all and each individual human being, which depend precisely on such care and love as their conditions of possibility. All levels of human society and culture can contribute to this care ecology and must make their necessary contributions to this, including also the Church in her mission in the service of love, as Pope Benedict in the encyclical Deus Caritas Est formulated. And it also includes relevant technologies to contribute to this kind of care ecology.
Hello, everyone. So after presenting the concept of care ecology, we would like to continue to the ethics of robotics, its importance, practical settings, and its potential contribution to a dignified life, especially for elderly care. The use of robots has expanded beyond industrial settings to social environments with the aim to alleviate human workload, assist in various aspects of daily life, provide companionship, among others. As robots are expected to be an integral part of humans' environments and socialize and collaborate with us, this topic has become a subject of interest for interdisciplinary scholars, given that when robots are introduced in those environments, a range of questions emerge regarding of the role of those devices will have in society, how they will collaborate with us, and the consequences of using them, especially in those cohabitated by vulnerable populations. So, because robotics is the future, we can say robotics needs ethics. An innovative way to integrate ethics into robotics design is through a socio-technical approach, often referred to as human-centered design. In robotics and related fields, technical metrics such as efficiency, speed, and accuracy often take precedence over ethical values, like inclusiveness, human dignity, and broader social responsibility. Robots are typically trained to interact with humans using supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning, drawing from a large datasets or direct human engagement. Within this technical framework, robots are expected to exhibit socially acceptable behavior by optimizing quantifiable outcomes. However, this performance-driven focus can fall short in addressing the more complex social and ethical dimensions of human-robot interaction. This is where insights from social science become particularly valuable. Social science methodologies, such as interviews, ethnographies, participatory design, and surveys, enable the collection of qualitative and quantitative data that capture humans' expectations, emotional nuances, and social and cultural norms. When systematically analyzed this data, this can be translated into technical parameters, forming the basis for new types of social datasets that help train robots in human-centered behavior. In other words, socially relevant insights can be operationalized and integrated into learning algorithms, thereby expanding what is considered in performance in robotics to include relational and ethical competence. The socio-technical approach thus supports the development of robots that not only meet technical standards, but also respond meaningfully to the values, needs, and expectations of people they are meant to assist. In this model, human dignity is not a peripheral concern, but a foundational design principle. To properly use the socio-technical method, we have to analyze a specific scenario. In this case, care robots for elderly care. We could ask if care robots represent an opportunity or a threat for elderly care, and if those devices could facilitate and promote dignified care. The use of robots in elderly care involves a highly sensitive social context. In such settings, robots are often perceived not merely as a service-providing machines, but also as a social agents entrusted with the responsibility of offering both care and companionship. In this case, to enhance dignity care, it is important to take into account the context of care, the practices being supported, the actors involved, the type of robot used, and the type of interaction and the moral elements. Some of the moral aspects that must be respected and taken into account are autonomy of the patient, which includes both functional independence and the feeling of control and respect. Robots should always support without undermining the autonomy of the patient. We also have isolation that could affect dignity and the well-being in elderly care. So robots should be socially attuned, capable of emotional interaction and personalized responses to reduce loneliness. Another important aspect when designing ethically socially robots is the learning of moral reasoning. This means giving robots the capacity to understand social context when a situation could constitute harm or benefit to individuals. Importantly, in this context, it is needed to understand that robots are machines created to collaborate with humans, in this case, patients and also healthcare staff, but they are not substitutes of healthcare staff. Due to the reasons mentioned above, it is important to talk about ethical principles for care robots. That follows also ethical principles of care as a practice. Some of those principles are attentiveness, that refers to the robot's capacity to perceive and respond to the needs of care recipients. Responsibility, that refers to the robot's function in recognizing and responding to the needs of care recipients. Here, responsibility is framed as the robot's capacity to adjust its behavior according to patients' needs. However, the ultimate accountability for robots' actions and decisions remains with its developers and users. Competence pertains to the robot's ability to perform tasks reliably and effectively. And finally, reciprocity acknowledges the active role of care recipients in the relationship, providing feedback and influencing the care provided. These values are not abstract ideals, but must be operationalized within specific design robotics features. So for example, touch is a powerful gesture in human caregiving. It communicates trust, empathy, and dignity. The way robots are programmed to touch the patients reflects deep ethical choices, whether the touch is gentle, respectful, and context appropriate, or impersonal and mechanical. This can significantly influence user experience and perceptions of dignity. Using this social technical approach, we conducted an exploratory analysis to examine caregivers' perceptions of the usefulness and necessity of four types of care robots in care settings, taking into account well-being and dignified treatment of patients, with the aim to understand where those machines are more needed to alleviate healthcare staff workload. We conducted an online survey using TAM, that means Technology Acceptance Model, a well-known scale in the field to analyze human preferences of technology, and we applied it to robotics. The type of robots evaluated were robots delivering medical supplies and equipment across hospital units, robots assisting patients in safely getting into and out of bed, robots to continuously uh, monitor vital signs for early detection of health issues, robots providing mobility to support patients with physical limitations, and for the data analysis, we conducted a descriptive statistic analysis. So these are some videos of the robots we show to the users in our study, and we bring them to you today.
This robot is assisting patients in safely getting into and out of bed.
A second robot that is delivering supplies.
This kind of robot provides mobility support to patients with physical limitations.
And this finally is the robot monitoring vital signs. Okay. In general, the robot helping patients into bed was the most preferred robots for healthcare staff in Germany. And also when analyzing in which specific care context those robots could be more useful, we see that also robots here helping patients into bed was the most preferred in geriatric context. So in general, healthcare staff prefer robots that assist them during physical demanding tasks, such as moving patients, and it is expected that they believe robots can help them improving their work conditions when they help on those hard physical tasks. They also could feel less comfortable with robots taking patients' vital signs, possibly because they perceive this task as requiring a certain level of complexity and responsibility that they are not yet ready to delegate to a machine. But in overall, in the study, it was possible to see that healthcare professionals expressed a positive opinion toward using nurse robots in healthcare environments, including elderly care settings. This suggests the potential for greater acceptance of such devices in medical spaces in the future. Robots can assist and facilitate taking care to some extent, so there is need to discern their development and use in the perspective of an integral care ecology. Thank you very much for your attention. Yeah.
It's that, because I was told by the organizers I have to be really strict with the time. Now we have our second slot offline, which means in person. We go to Croatia. Paula Zujic and Vice Rector Professor Jasna Jurkovic will talk about aging in the age of AI. How will we remember elders and how will we care for them? The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I warmly greet you all on behalf of our whole team, including Professor Jasna and Professor Ivana. It's truly an honor to be here speaking today in front of such a respected audience. Let me open with a thought that continues to echo across time and seems particularly meaningful in the world we live in today. Just to check if everything... Okay. Great. So the only constant is change, says Heraclit. So it's not exactly a profound revelation to say that many different areas of society are undergoing a significant change. For the purpose of this presentation and to help frame our topic, I will highlight 3 specific shifts. The first change is demographic. Many Western countries are currently experiencing significant demographic shifts, especially an increase in the aging population, as we know. This trend is influenced by several well-known factors, such as increased life expectancy due to advancements in medicine and public health, better living standards, improved nutrition and hygiene, and at the same time, decline in birth rates over the past decades. As a result, societies are facing new developmental needs, transformed social dynamics, and the need for fresh policies, public policies and approaches in various sectors, from healthcare and the labor market to urban planning and social care, of course. The second societal shift relates to our perception of aging. Aging used to be seen as a natural part of life, something understood or interpreted through religion and philosophy. One could argue that this was because we had not yet developed the tools to challenge it, such as medicine or technology. But today, even though elderly populations are growing, older individuals are often not recognized as a valuable presence in our society. What seems to characterize modern culture is a tendency to deny, postpone, or even erase aging from the public sphere. emphasizing youthfulness, promoting anti-aging products and services, and reinforcing stereotypes and prejudice against the elderly. We can see some of them here on slide. A study from Croatia shows that younger people perceive society as lacking in its care for elderly. As we can see, almost 40% of respondents disagreed with statement that our society takes care of older people, and almost 40% of them were undecided towards this question, which is also indicative. While a study from the same year from UK reveals that fear of aging appears already among people in their 30s or 40s. The third change we are focusing on involves the development and progress of technology. It's something we live with every day, of course, but has become especially visible in this era of rapid and exponential growth of artificial intelligence. AI is increasingly being integrated into almost every area of life. It's an undeniable social reality that, on the one hand, brings many benefits and also efficiency, but on the other hand, raises complex questions and challenges. This is especially relevant to the context of transhumanism, which is highlighted here, a social movement, philosophy, ethical framework, set of practices aimed at enhancing human beings and overcoming their natural limitations through technology, through integration with technology. One of transhumanism's key goals is to stop the aging process and ultimately to overcome that. What once sounded like science fiction is now beginning to take shape in reality if we consider the rapid development of scientific fields important for transhumanism, such as genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, significant financial investments in that fields, and the views expressed by leading figures in the tech and economic world. These are just some of the defining aspects of contemporary life. It is within this triangle of demographic change, technological development with focus on transhumanism and transhumanistic vision and negative perception of aging that we locate our topic and the key phenomena we aim to discuss, because we believe they are especially relevant and meaningful for understanding the concept of care and support for the elderly today.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Now I'm going to take over. So I would start by the idea that AI affects not only how we live, but also how we remember and how we also die. And I would like to start with the notion of one word that I loved very much, and Clemens also mentioned it. This is the word home. So this is the photo, probably, I'm not sure, are you familiar with the cartoon Up? And it was based on a real life story about a woman which is named Edith Macefield. She was 84 years old, lived in Seattle, and she didn't want to sell her house for some company wanted to build commercial complex. And she was promised to have a kind of, to be relocated, to have sorted out her health issues in order to sell this house, but she refused. And the idea behind this cartoon and all the story about that, which I wanted to bring up, is that how much is important to be at home and to grow older at home. It's not only about the walls, it's precisely and specifically about the memories that we have in these home. So thanks to the AI technology, the concept of aging in place is increasingly possible and is being much more popular. Just think about hospitals at home programs, digital therapeutics, assistive robots, and much more. But we can also think about how this AI technology can affect the way we remember. what is called reminiscence therapy. Also, Clemens mentioned the elderly with this dementia or Alzheimer diseases. So we know that holograms can recreate familiar people, objects, or environment, which can help them to access autobiographical memories. There is also the concept of intergenerational memory that can be somehow encouraged with the AI, as families using holograms to preserve and pass on a story in a vivid, more interacting way. So I very often tell to my students, when we think about the issue, how this changes the way we remember and we interact with our grandfathers, I tell them that very often that we are the last generation, I would say, in human history that could hear the stories in an oral way. For example, I never seen the photo of my father being a child, never. And I have only one photo of my grandfather. So I think that our generation will have everything remembered, everything stored. And the way their imagination will work, it will be definitely different and change. This is a topic that I want to address. It's here. The thing is that this need or this kind of trait in humans that we want to live forever, as Paula mentioned, is something which is part of our nature. In all our history, all civilizations struggled to live after we are dead. So we just think about the Egyptians. They tried to, in the process of mummification, to preserve the body after it was dead, or the Greeks. They didn't want to preserve the bodies, but they wanted to preserve or being immortal, preserved by the glory. And it was much more important to even to have short and very difficult life, but having internal glory. Now we live surrounded by mnemonic technologies. As we know, those are tools that are designed to preserve memory. Photos, museums, archives, videos, and so on and so on. But today they are somehow also affecting the way we grieve and we grow older. The main differences between traditional mnemotechnologies and the modern one is that this modern technology is more interactive. Now it's not only that we can look at the photos, visit the museums and maybe flick through the albums, but we can also interact with some kind of holograms. And I will show three here to show you a few platforms, but there are many more and companies that produces this kind of digital avatars, this kind of holograms. This is, for example, a hologram that was made by Shoah Foundation about Pinchas Gutter, who was a Holocaust survivor and who told his stories in many ways. There's a lots of video recording on YouTube, but now this is a hologram. He's not real, he's not in the room, but can interact and talk about his history. Totally different from this lady. I met her when I was in Yad Vashem. This is Rita Quint, and she wrote about her, desire to meet, to understand her mother, because she never saw her mother. So I just want to point out these differences in ways AI affects the way we remember, and I would say that older people are very much, I would say, cautious or even worried how they will be remembered in the future. Now, the question is, are these mnemonic technologies merely system of control, which they always were during the history, who owned the archives, they ruled the game, so to say. As Orwell said, who controls the past controls also the future. But now I think why it's important to see that these technologies not only as a forms of control, but also forms of care. So in approaching this issue about how AI can help us to remember, to grieve, and to say farewell when it comes for elder people, I would say there is a lots of ethical issues. There is a lots of pros, as I presented before, helping these old people to grow older and to pass their lives in such a safe and human environment. But there is a lots of even ethical issues that we should face. One of them, I listed here many, maybe I cannot go through all of them, I don't know how much time I have, but just, oh, okay, okay, thank you, very generous. So just let me point out a few of these concerns. For example, unrealistic expectations. For example, hyper-realistic simulations may delay mourning or create emotional dependencies. The question of consent. Who controls an avatar after that? Can it be altered or exploited? Is that the wish of older people to be presented in this way? Equity and access. Will only wealthy achieve digital immortality depending on social economic divides? Which it means that even in this kind of afterlife life, there will be kind of the elite who will be in charge and having this kind of holograms. And also the question of the mourning, are we building a society unable to accept grief or loss, on how much suffering it will be enough or acceptable? And do we have any lessons for suffering? If we eliminate suffering from our lives, are we better people and better societies? So I would just conclude with these three thoughts. And I think that this topic is not kind of giving answers, more questions, because this is a kind of emerging technology. But it's good to think about these issues, because as some people say, it's almost inevitable as a death, this kind of digital immortality, because all of us somehow collect, preserve the traces, the digital traces of us, and we cling to them. So the first idea is memento mori, the old age reminder, remember you will die, encourages us to live authentically in the present, as pointed out by Clemens as well. Does digital immortality numbs us to do that? Is still memory if it doesn't fade? We know that memory is dynamic, shaped by time, change, and emotion, and preserved digital self may freeze the past. Does scripted memory distort reality? We also know that we want to be remembered in a good way, and we were very selective how we want to be remembered. Usually remembering is selective in ways that we embellish the picture of ourselves. So a future generation may interact with more idealized avatar than with imperfect, really real stories. How were our grandfathers? Were they ideal? Probably not, but this is how they were. And the last question, what becomes of elders' role in our life? Are we strengthening or diluting the role of elders? Do we risk replacing real remembrance with passive consumption or archived voice and images? And in the end, I would say that true remembering, it's not just recall or a copy of the past. It's creative, emotional act. It's rooted in absence. It's rooted even in a suffering sometimes, in a longing, especially in imagination. And when you think about these things in the context of the care for elders, we wanted to point out that even thinking about these things, how the old elders people will be remembered and how they will remember, is a sort of a care, because we know that as they pass away, they are very concerned what kind of legacy they will leave behind. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Paula and Jasna. Thank you also for your time management. Impressive. If I understand correctly, we stay in Croatia, but now online. So we have Anna Maria Malejevic and Anto Kartolovny talking about From Fear to Trust, Why Digital Literacy Matters in Elderly Care. The floor is yours if you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Greetings to all of you from Zagreb. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a really pleasure to be with you here today, even in this online environment. And I will present a topic From Fear to Trust, Why Digital Literacy Matter in Elderly Care. And when we are talking about the future of the care of the elderly, it's really necessary to talk about the skills and competence that the older population has or does not have, actually. So people around the world are living longer, and today most people can expect to live into their 60s and beyond. By 2030, 1 in 6 people in the world will be aged 60 years or older. In Europe, it's estimated that by 2060, 1/3 of the population will be the age of 65. The need for care among older adults will be double compared to 2012. In some highly developed countries, this aging of the population is happening even more rapidly and progressively. For example, in Japan, by 2050, 40% of the population there will be over the age of 65. Also, by 2050, the number of people aged 80 and over is expected to triple, reaching 426 million approximately. And while many high-income countries are already facing the challenge of aging population, this demographic change will increasingly affect middle and low-income countries as well. Due to longer life expectancy, many people will encounter more health needs during their lives, as well as chronic illnesses that requires constant care and monitoring. All of this puts pressure on the healthcare system, which is already facing challenges such as workforce shortage and financial. At the same time, is expected to provide long-term care and appropriate treatment to respond to rising demand. On the other hand, technology advancements, especially in the field of the AI, offer really great potential to improve healthcare. And this innovation can help reduce pressure on the healthcare system, address workforce shortages, and offer more personalized and faster care. It's unquestionable that the application of AI in healthcare can improve elderly care, reduce existing problems, and help prevent future issues related to demographic changes. AI has a broad range of application in elderly care. It can support older adults in maintaining independence as long as possible, allowing them to stay in their own homes while giving family members or caregivers tools to monitoring them and their well-being through various alarms and sensors. Technology can also enable remote care, reducing need for maybe unnecessary in-person visits. And regular in-person visits with healthcare professionals can be inconvenient and stressful, especially for those who need to arrange transportation or need physical assistance. Wearables, remote monitoring can really allow us in healthcare and especially to healthcare providers to track data of their patients without needing. Tools can also help us to predict when patients may need more intensive care. Another common issue among elderly or older adults is social isolation, especially for those who are living alone or living in care facilities. And AI can help here by providing with virtual assistants or chatbots that can talk or play games or provide useful information to help to reduce feeling of loneliness. And while AI really holds a great potential, it's also important to pay attention to how it's perceived by its future users, that is, older adults. Wong and colleagues conduct a really good qualitative study about this topic and found that most participants had positive views of AI-based health technologies and can recognize their potential to improve health by enabling better monitoring, offering personalized recommendations, supporting decision-making. However, awareness and understanding of specific AI health technologies were limited. Some participants even confused AI with general technologies like smartphones. There was also a lot of concerns about fraud and scams associated with AI health tools. Many were worried about the data misuse and also emphasized the importance of strong security measures. Participants also identify many technological obstacles, such as a lack of resource and stable internet access and connection, but also limited digital literacy. Emotional and physical barriers were also significant, including fear of technology, skepticism, worries about losing human interaction in the healthcare. And also the rise in scams and fraud in the digital world only made these fears worse, making participants hesitant to trust digital tools, especially that one used in healthcare. As this study shows, one of the major barriers actually to accepting and using AI technology in healthcare among older adults is low digital literacy. In general, data shows that 61% of the people in the EU aged between 65 and 74 use internet at all. The percentage is much lower in countries like Croatia, Bulgaria, and Greece, approximately around 30%. If you are looking in Scandinavia countries, such as Sweden and Denmark, it's a lot of higher. It's almost 95%. And digital skills in this age group are also significantly lower in the other than in other age groups. Most older people have no digital skills at all or below average. And also there are gender differences. Women have even lower digital literacy than men. However, before implement any digital solution, it's really essential to evaluate how ready society is for innovation. And low digital literacy among older adults, including limited skills, limited access to technology, and different socioeconomic barriers, can lead to digital exclusion, discrimination, and an inability to benefit from technology, specifically of AI progress. It can also create resistance to technology caused by fear, lack of knowledge, and limited access to information. Although digital literacy is a key step before using AI in the healthcare of older patients, increasing digital literacy brings many additional benefits. For example, it can improve access to information and communication, can help people to recognize false content and protect them from scams in the future. It can also increase independence and improves both physical and mental health through use of available health tools. And despite its importance, education of older adults in digital literacy remains a major challenge. Some of the reasons include fear of technology, cognitive differences that can affect learning ability and learning process, but also lack of social support during this process. A low digital literacy leads to misunderstanding, which then grows into fear, especially when faced with technology that is unfamiliar or difficult to learn. This is especially important in the healthcare, considering both the potential benefits of AI and the risks and challenges it brings. And trust is the foundation of good healthcare outcomes. The patient trusts the doctor and the doctor trusts the patient. Now technology, especially AI, becomes part of this equation, and it's essential to build trust in it as well. So research shows that trust in the AI health care among older people is currently very low. So we need concrete actions to increase it. And healthcare professionals, they need to be the one who inform, demonstrate, and explain this technology to the patients, especially the older adults. Also, trustworthiness must be built into the design of the digital tools intended for older adults. The design should be user-focused, promote independence, build confidence, and be adapted to the abilities and needs of older people, such as larger font size, voice comments, gamified elements, or different simplified navigation texts. So that use is easier and doesn't create negative emotion towards technology. And while AI really promising offers really promising results in a time of major demographic changes, it's crucial to ensure that conditions that make it use possible. And digital literacy among older adults is very low. if we don't address this, it could lead to exclusion, discrimination, and failure to realize the full potential of this technology, especially AI in care. This is something that everyone from developing the tool to those implementing them must keep in mind. So through inclusive design, education, and engagement, we must and can build trust in digital technologies, especially AI, among older adults by increasing their digital literacy. And this must be, I think, a priority for all of us and really imperative in the future. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, and greetings to Željko Tanić. He can be proud of these contributions from your university. Thank you. Now we go back physically and spatially to Pázmány Péter University. Dr. Karas Imre will present on a mobile phone-based visual assistant for visually impaired people. Oh, please. Take it from there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to say sincere thanks to the organizers for the invitation. And I have to start by a confession. I'm from a technological background, and therefore I'm probably going to be the outlier today. I will try to keep it simple, so don't be afraid. But still, the things I'm going to show are going to be somewhat different. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to proceed. Okay. So the other aspect of me being an outlier is that I'm not going to address a technology for the elderly, rather technologies for another group of society needing technological assistance in many cases, namely visually impaired people. And about almost 300 million people in the world are visually impaired and are in lack of assistance for many cases in their life. I'm trying to figure out, okay, this is the way. So there are a number of simple everyday tasks that those of us who are sighted take for granted that it's easy to execute, like just going into a tram stop or reading the display to find out which line is coming. If you want to get on line number 4, you don't want to mistakenly take another one. Or just even seeing other people around you so that you don't bump into them. And as my background is computer vision, we actually started looking into how this cognitive process of vision can be replicated for the purposes of creating a visual assistant for visually impaired people. Like in this situation, there are many, many concurrent processes going on in our brains as we process the incoming image, locating, for example, this display on which you see the list, then extracting what parts are responsible for what, so like the destinations, the line numbers, and the times, and then just recognizing those individual characters and words. These are very involving processes, so replicating these is not easy. However, actually these later parts are kind of solved by today thanks to the development of AI technologies. So these fairly simple everyday tasks are not as simple as we may think about them. And there are a number of others. We actually made a survey in the visually impaired community, both in Hungary and abroad, to find out which are these simple tasks that they are most need some assistance with. But all of these are about understanding our visual environment. So like extracting some information that I need to be able to navigate around, like, you know, when you have to report your gas meter or choose the shirt when you come to the conference, or just basically pay in the store by cash. And one further example that I really like is when we go do the groceries, you basically have to do a lot of localization and recognition tasks. And even if my wife writes me the list of things that I need to get in the store, it takes me quite a while to be able to locate them. So therefore, I usually like to go to the same place. And when the local supermarket changes layout, then I'm out of luck. So there are a number of technological devices that actually address these problems. This, in the upper left corner, you can see a color identifier that can basically tell you what, if you point it at a surface, it will tell you what color it is, like red, brown, or green. Maybe ladies can prefer a little bit larger selection of colors, but some more advanced devices, you can even set the set of names it uses. There's a number of other devices available for these everyday tasks. However, if you need a special device for each and every such simple task, and you need to make sure you learn, and we saw how learning curves can be difficult, not only for elderly, but even for some younger people, and you need to make sure you charge the batteries of those, and you can diagnose any problems that arise with them, then it becomes quite a hassle. So smartphones can actually be very helpful in this way because they can integrate all these functions in a single device. And actually, by today's standards, even most visually impaired people use a smartphone as on a regular basis, like just as sighted people do. So we actually proposed to create a cell phone-based solution, and although there were previously existing ones, just as the solution from Microsoft called Seeing AI that you could see on the previous slide, we actually wanted to go a step further than that and not only use the camera of the phone, but also other sensors. It's basically an arsenal of sensors in here. And we created a technological pipeline to be able to create a simplified model of understanding of all this information that can come in and provide some meaningful feedback to the user. And we do it in a way that in AI research, there's a term called artificial general intelligence, which basically thinks about trying to solve everything a human can solve. So this is not what we are doing here, rather to create things that are specifically targeting these specific scenarios, thereby making sure that we avoid the risks of AI basically reaching further than what we are trying to use it for. And even though we try to simplify things, there's one basic culprit behind many of these visual understanding tasks, is basically understanding the location where you are. So those of us who are sighted in here basically understand the structure of this room, where the seats are located, where the columns can be seen, and so on. But navigating such a space, if you are visually impaired, is very demanding because you don't understand these. And to solve many of these tasks, we basically have to create such a representation, a 3D model of the environment inside the device. And this is very challenging, although it's already possible thanks to recent advancements in technological research. But doing it on a phone, a portable phone, without using servers on the internet is actually not that easy. Actually not possible yet, at least not real time. So we designed this app called Let's See, which is available both for iPhones and Androids. If you want to give it a go, it's a free application, and I have a profound belief that experience is a key to understanding life, and seeing is believing. But so I urge everyone to try if you want to try it. And those functions that are already available can help you recognizing money, or you can teach your credit cards or IDs, and it will be able to recognize them and tell you what they are for. What I want to talk about in the second part of my talk is after having started this technological development, we basically came across a competition called Cybathlon. This is organized by ETH Zurich and started in 2016 and is organized every 4 years, basically in a style of Olympics. And it creates competition for technologies that try to help visually impaired people. We also think about it as the Formula One race for assistive technologies, for the reason that many of the things we actually use in our everyday cars, like rear view mirrors or whatever other technologies, basically are coming for the Formula One race. So we are hoping that the technologies we prepare for these competitions will actually be available for a widespread society. And in our case, this would be the visually impaired community. And here you can see some visualizations as we prepared for these further specific tasks. The organizers basically had the same idea as we did, but specified many more everyday tasks, such as finding an empty chair in such a conference room, or walking on a narrow path, or ordering a food on a touch screen in a fast food restaurant. So here you can see some visualizations that basically try to give you an insight how we actually perceive these environments through the cameras of the phone. And I would like to show you that our group member, Peter Shuyok, who became basically our pilot, as we called it, by basically the driver. And this is going to be a bit difficult because I'm not sure if we can, we can change here. So this is the first trial that we did in a trial run with him using the phone. It's a bit sped up, but you can see him using the phone and being able to get around the obstacles, detecting them. It's talking to him and tells him what it sees. It doesn't tell him what to do. That is up to the pilot in this case. However, these are, as you could see, this is a 3 by 5 meter environment, and therefore not very realistic. So if you can do this at the competition, you might not be able to do it in everyday life. But eventually we were successful in these trial runs. This was in 2022. And then eventually we went on and created all the 10 different tasks that were proposed. And the Cybathlon 2024 actually hosted the visual assistant competition, and composed of 10 different tasks, including groceries or picking a t-shirt or ringing into the appropriate apartment in a condo. So eventually a very nice international team gathered for this competition in Zurich. Some of them participated online, just like today here. Others were present in person. And it has become a fierce competition, and our pilot used the simplest device out of all the possible teams. You can see some robotic dogs, as well as very large backpacks full of hardware. And we just went with the single iPhone, but that didn't prevent our pilot to actually finish at the first place. So you can see our happy team here celebrating. And I'm going to end with, if I can, by showing some videos actually how he did at the competition. And I hope this will eventually, show you how the whole thing worked. There were parallel sessions, so you can see 4 parallel possibilities, and the different pilots were going in their own pace. And in this scenario that you just saw, the task was to find a lost object in a messy room, which does happen to all of us. But if you don't have, if you're not sighted, then it's a much larger challenge to find your lost wallet. And this is how he actually managed to walk through this narrow pathway. And I think I'm gonna finish here. And I would like to thank your attention. And I hope that I could finish on time. I'm not sure I earned such compliments as the previous speakers, but if you have any questions, I would be glad to discuss any related materials. This technology can also be used for elderly care, I guess, but we're still investigating that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to your team, of course. And also thank you for your time discipline. Round of applause for the team? Yeah. Now we move to New York, if I'm not mistaken, to Fordham University. Professor Avraham Weber will talk about application of robots and artificial intelligence in elderly care in Israel. I understand Professor Weber is a cosmopolitan, and one of his destinations is Israel, but he also has a basis in Fordham. And so, Avraham, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate allowing me to come online, which allowed me actually to participate today. And I'm just trying to pull up my presentation. Let's see that it's coming up. Right. And in the right form, that is. There we go. So I'd like to take the few minutes that I was assigned today to kind of run through the public the main concerns or the main issues that we're now dealing with when it comes to application of robotics and artificial intelligence in elderly care in Israel. Israel being a startup nation and a nation that actually focuses or utilizes quite a lot its IT abilities for many other fields such as defense and other means in Israeli society, has focused in the last years very much on its IT abilities. We have very huge progress in the usage and utilizing of big data. But again, today we'll kind of try to run through how Israel utilizes these changes also for its elderly citizens. So I'd like to start with some basic working assumptions that will run us through the groups of elderly that we have in Israel. Emergence technologies, of course, have the potential to assist older people and care and cater for their health care and social needs. That means that we can, for one end, solve real problems of the people, and from the second part of it, not less interesting, is the state to run an economically efficient system that would benefit the citizens again. So we're speaking about two very important elements that are working together, all this in order to make sure that efficiency and better service is given to the elderly citizen in Israel. We've found out in recent years in Israel that we have three types of very efficient fields where this is applicable. We have the wearables, we have the artificial intelligence apps, and mainly in fall prevention devices, which is a huge subject in Israel. We will reach probably the height of the impact this year, but we will probably see some development in the markets until 33. Of course, our geopolitical unstable situation in Israel leads us also to make sure that elderly citizens always receive an ongoing service, even in times of war and even in times where the public service is not accessible for everyone. The most effective impact is in the field of self-care, with the lowest being in social life. The significant barriers are, of course, the cost of the technology to develop these technologies and to make them for the public use. And those are the biggest challenges that the state has in order to promote and to integrate more of these technologies within what's going on. The important policy measures include increasing the usability and the availability of the solutions and using public funding and most importantly, training. And I'm going to skip on that because I understand from the lecture before that you kind of spoke about the need of understanding and getting acquainted with the technologies. But these are the three main parameters that the policymakers have to deal with. Would be the funding, the training, and making sure that these solutions are accessible to the public. When we look on the overall picture of the situation of elderly people in Israel, we have three main groups that we have to refer to. We have the young, old, the nursey elderly, those who need intensive direct help, and we have the minority elderly that have their own specific issues as will come about. We'll run now through the three main groups and see how this actually comes together with the policy planning. So with regard to the group of the young old, we're referring to those who become pensioners at what we call today at an early age, 65 men and 62 women. And these people are usually generally healthy, or they have a generally healthy life. They're also mobile, they're also self-sufficient, and they generate the largest part of the group, which challenges also the government with a lot of issues, including how to deal with this group and how to make sure that this group doesn't fall back into the needy groups. So one of the main structural ways of making sure that the young old group remains viable and relative and active is the usage of digital platforms for online personal development program and personal learning, meaning that the elderly citizen sitting at home doesn't have to be only sitting at home and watching TV and doing nothing. We have all these platforms that kind of introduce them into e-learning and being e-active in society, or not less important, being relevant in the community to support other activities with the other elderlies. The tools that we have here allows also very efficient volunteerings. You have various apps, or you have various NGOs that use these apps that kind of utilize this very simple, accessible, and beneficial working force in society, and allows to most of these young old people to mobilize and to be active in societies. The infrastructures also make sure that those of young old that are falling into the danger of being socially isolated and lonely, whether it's because their kids are too busy, they've just lost their spouse, or friends in their immediate surroundings, these technologies allow them to continue to be vital and important for society. We do have a few dilemmas that I wanted to kind of present today quickly. The more we use technology, the more we use these kind of digital platforms, the more we have non-person activities. So, for example, for my personal unhappiness, I had to stay away and I couldn't enjoy today this conference physically in Budapest. But for the elderly citizens that are receiving all the support over these digital platforms, they stayed home and they are, in principle, at the same time that we kind of solve some of their issues, we introduce some sort of a non-person activity and support in a way, potentially their isolation from society. We have allocations of funds from in-person engagement. So let's say clubs for elderly citizens, or some activities, whether it's dancing or whether it's theater, whether it's cinema. And we have to allocate some of the public funds from these in-person activities into the development of these platforms that I just spoke of. It also limits, in a way, the introduction or some sort of a personal contact between the caretaker or the person who provides the service on behalf of the government and the elderly citizen. Most of the people, as we've heard in lectures before, are not fully up to date with technologies. And so we need to figure out a way to make a very efficient learning process that would allow them to benefit from the technology and not being intimidated or isolated from the technology. We need to also find this balance between the economical efficiency, because at the end of the day, if this is a state-backed adventure, it has to make a lot of sense also on grounds. And therefore, we have to see that the balance of what we're trying to make here is, at the end of the day, economical and normal. I'd like to finish on the young olds with the last point, and that is the moral dilemmas that are created due to community-based behavior that is encouraged by Judaism. So in principle, we have in Judaism this idea about having this community. That's why people go and meet. That's why we have holidays. That's why we have lessons. That's why people are engaged together. And in a way, this is a very unhuman thing to kind of promote these platforms that kind of get the people away from gatherings and being in person. At the same time, and we'll get to that at the end of my talk, of course, when it comes to the balances of the situation, it's pretty clear what the potential of these technologies are. The nursing elderly are, of course, the most challenging and the most difficult group to deal with. These are those who are unable to take care of themselves and therefore need to have supporting systems helping them to get by. Here, the technology is extremely incremental and important because the platforms and the applications help us treat and monitor the patients and to give them the best support and assistance ever. If we look into robotics usage in medical surgery today, it's of a hugely beneficial outcomes for the patients. And when we have a personal medical service coordinator, the patient or the target client of ours, of the nursing elderly, is being taken care in the best optimal way. Because the system and the application and the AI supports us in giving him the best services that we can. AI also gives us some support in medical decision-making and strategy. It gives us, in a way, a very fast and accessible mean in coordinating and coming up with the right strategy for our elderly is in Israel. Diagnostics and also treatments are now part of today's medicine. Everything that I just said now, it's not without a flaw. It brings a lot of very heavy questions. So we have first of all, the limitation of the responsibilities of the caretaker, physician, the service provider, because AI and technology and principles are the first line of combat, and they're the first line that we get to see things. So they get to make the decisions, and therefore we have this moral hazard of creating a reduced fiduciary and reduced need of all these people to take better care of our elderly. And coming back to this idea that we also wanted to speak about moral dilemmas, this is, of course, something that is extremely contradictional to the Jewish idea of community and supporting of the elderly. This will come, of course, when I'll talk about minorities in a second. Another big question that will be probably discussed later on also today in other talks, what do we teach the machine? What does the AI do? We always use this term AI, but at the end of the day, the machine will give us support and give us answers in accordance to what we planned. And so we have to make must be very well aware of what is the systematic way of us putting up the AI system and what are we expecting to hear back from it. It creates a lot of moral issues regarding especially medical decisions because the AI is not aware or is unable until today, in any case, to make decisions based on the, let's say, humanity or anything that has to do with feelings and the patient's feelings and the patient's wishes and the patient's issues. The machine will only give us an answer in accordance with what we teach it. We are very much back, and I checked it also in the United States, and pretty sure it's also the situation in Hungary. We do not have very strong legal frameworks and regulations for AI applications in the medical world. We're still not there. We're still relying very much on guidelines and guidebooks and ethics and what the Helsinki Committee and what doctors want to do, but we're not really there in creating a full-scale, very clear, tight regulations for this. And that causes, of course, the question whether all what we're doing here is safe. Again, and I think this was also the comment of the colleague with the phone company just before me. Most groundbreaking medicine is found based on experiments. If we do not experiment, and if we limit experiment, and if we're too frightened of what could happen, we will have no progress. And so the very complicated game that we have to find here is the way to balance basically between two different sides of the coins. Before coming back to my thoughts to take for the further discussions you're going to have today, I wanted to quickly run you through the situation with minorities in Israel. In Israel, we have 22% of our population who's non-ethnically Jewish. Most of the members of these groups are basically don't share the same or don't have the same understanding and the concepts of community as we do. And they have other priorities and other structures at home. So here, when you bring in an I, you create, in principle, two different issues. The first issue is with the narrative of that minority. For example, Muslims would have a different way of taking care of the elderly. Women would be more subjected to take. So a family member, not a woman, instead, a family member would be expected to be more active in the caretaking of his parents or the parents of his spouse. And so we have some issues that are very specifically tailor-made for the minority, and then we have to figure out a way that the system will be incorporated also with this minority. So we have that usually that the system that will have to have some sort of compatibles changes that are needed and make sure that they're relevant. Yeah, and so trying to kind of run up this very quick introduction that I'm making today. So we have to make sure that all the publicly accessible infrastructures that we've created for the old, young, and the nursing elderly will be compatible with the framework of the social and religious needs of the minorities. We need to kind of heavily invest into marketing and promoting these services within minorities, otherwise they won't use it. The very important point that I'm making here is that at the end of the day, if we don't make these changes and we don't make these special campaigns and investments, then that minority group is going to be excluded from the normal public sector service, because in general, most of the healthcare system and supporting of the elderly is now moving from physical to online IT support. And therefore, when we look into bringing into the market newer or advanced technologies, they have to have also this aspect of the adaptation that has to be made for these minorities. For many Jewish citizens, these technologies are very accessible and very known, and therefore, as I said, the idea that is always in front of the people making these decisions is the need to kind of think of change agents and how to better either teach the kids or the younger generation how to access these technologies. Otherwise, as I said, we'll have a situation where parts of our societies are excluded only based on the fact that they're different. And so by optimization of the existing infrastructures, we'll reach our goals. So just before I leave you very quickly, where will the future take us? And robotics hold a high level of moral hazards. We assume that the machines are having feeling capabilities, but they don't. So we always have to kind of look into that when we deal with these issues. AI, especially the diagnostics, has been used for years successfully and has brought good results for humans. The regulating ensures the high level of process of the information and safeguarding of the process. These are things that are still needed to be worked on. The guidelines and best practices must reflect dilemmas that we've discussed today. And on the other hand, we cannot stop the progress, or we cannot stop the future, and we cannot ignore the huge potential in improving our lives if we use these techniques. So I thank you very much. I think that's the 15 minutes I had plus the VAT. And so I thank you very much for your attention. And I hope that this presentation was of help and of interest to the participants of today's conference.
Thank you very much. program. Yeah, same person, different topic. So it will be Dr. Shorena Gokiashvili from the Sabo Arbeliani University in Tbilisi, Georgia. The topic, already corrected online, will be cross-generational dialogue through artificial intelligence, and can robots foster communication between youth and elders? This will be in person. It's lovely to have you here. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. As I know, it's lunchtime is approaching, so I won't take you long. So as it was mentioned, program says absolutely different titles. This is my field, what I study, what I research, but I wanted to modify it according to conference needs. So today my presentation will be about cross-generational dialogue through artificial intelligence. Can robots foster communication between youth and elders, or robots are the only hope? So we will see. Okay. So at first, let's say what's a cross-generational dialogue refers to meaningful interaction and communication between people of different age groups, particularly youth and older adults. And we know that how technologies develop nowadays, so it's very important to somehow adapt the old needs and young generations' needs to each other. So as AI and robotics increasingly become part of our daily lives, their potential role in bridging the divide meets scientific explosion. So so I guess, okay, yeah. So a global population is aging, with people over 60 expected to exceed 2 billion by 2025, according to World Health Organization 2021, and I know that we have high numbers right now. At the same time, youth are immersed in digital environments. This divergence creates gaps in understanding, interaction, and shared experience. So artificial intelligence, AI, particularly embodied in social robots, offers opportunities to mediate and support their interactions by providing neutral, adaptable platforms for communication. Well, first of all, I want to mention about some research aims. So it's about, can AI-powered robots facilitate meaningful intergenerational communication? So first one, do robots enhance social interaction? Are they accepted by both groups, and can they foster emotional connections? I'm going to talk about theoretical foundation and three ones. One is geronotechnology. So it's an interdisciplinary study combining geronotechnology and technology to improve the lives of elderly adults. So that means that we should integrate old ones and young ones in case to make older people's life better and more meaningful. And if you look at the photo here, we will see another approach. This is about socio-emotional selectivity theory. And it's about, theory states that with age, a person's social goals shift from being knowledge related to emotional related. So as they get older, we know that they are knowledgeable, but they mostly become emotional related. So we should think about that as well. And one of the new approaches is also human-robot interaction. And so here we can see mostly how humans engage with robots, emphasizing trust, agency, and emotional response. And so we know that elderly people don't have high competence in using some different robots and gadgets. So sometimes we face the fact that they don't trust at all, and they really need to experience some of the robots in case to gain some trust. And also, if we look at the first robot, so it stands in front of the elderly people and just gives some instructions how to exercise, what to do, and somehow we see on humans' face, on elderly people's face, that there is doubt in their faces, so whether they trust or not using these robots, so we never know. And here also we have AI robotics uses cases, and I want to emphasize there are two robots. One robot is about Pepper, and second one is Paro. So these robots provide companionship, emotional support, and interactive experience. So if we look at the first one, it's mostly aimed for the larger society, so it can help a lot of people, for example, in elderly care centers. But if you look at the second one, it's Robot Paro, and Robot Paro is a little puppy who can be cared, even you can give some food, and you can hug and express your emotions towards it also. It should be noted that a very important robot is Alec Robot, an AI robot that helps elders connect with family, schedule events, and receive health reminders. So it's important. So we know that young generation go out, they work, and they have busy schedule, and sometimes they might be forgotten. So this robot really helps in everyday basis. So it's really a good help. What I should note here, it's about co-learning activities. So we should implement many projects where you teach elders how to use digital tools via robot interfaces. And here I should note also my research area that is about gamified learning. So gamified learning is not only for students, and we cannot use gamified learning only in our classrooms or in our auditoriums. We can also use gamified learning for elderly care. So just imagine if we integrate a lot of different games using gamified learning for our elders, they won't feel bored or they won't feel lonely, and so they will use this gamified learning methods just in case to be connected and to felt entertained. So it's very important here. So co-learning activities are really very important, and this gamified learning will boost this process also. So there are some observed benefits, and one of them show using robots, AI tools for elderly care cases, and one of them is increased social engagement and decreased feeling of loneliness among elders. So when I know that I can pick at any time, for example, Alec Robot can contact to my family members and so on, of course it decreases the feeling of being alone. And also empathy development and improved communication skill in use, enhance mutual understanding or a generational experience, and robots acting as a neutral mediators in tense or uncertain social settings. So it's observed benefits, but of course, everything that has benefits, it also has negative sides as well. The most important challenges here is trust and acceptance. So like I already mentioned, some elder people don't trust at all the robots, and that's why we here have to we need here to use the long life learning experience. So we young generation should teach old ones how to use robots to overcome this fear, and they won't feel any more unfamiliar with this gadget, so they can use it easily and they will overcome this challenge as well. And one more problem is about digital literacy gaps. So they are the generation who were born without gadgets, so it's kind of problem for them to use a gadget on everyday basis. And here, long life learning style should be adopted as well. And privacy and autonomy concerns is also a huge problem. Robots that collect data must adhere to ethical standards. So on an ethical standard issue, it's also a very big problem. And affordability. No wonder that such robots cost quite a lot of money. So not a lot of people can buy that. So it's the most, if I want to emphasize from these challenges that I wrote here about 4, affordability is the biggest challenge here. And I want to emphasize also several case studies. One was in Japan. So it was about national AI and robotics strategy incorporates robots in elderly care facilities to encourage cognitive engagement and emotional well-being. And another one was done in Europe. So AI facilitates storytelling and language sharing programs between youth and elders. So I've even seen some robots who were these robots that had books and they read the books aloud for the elderly people. And it should be noted also that USA Mid-Age Lab experimental studies using AI companions to foster elderly youth project collaboration. And it's very important as well. What should be done? Policy and educational implications. So we really need for cross-sector collaboration, tech, education, and health. We should combine these 3 together. And also promoting digital inclusion programs. It's very important as well. And developing ethical AI frameworks for cross-generational use. So it's the most important issue that should be noted. So as for the future research directions, so designing adaptive AI for personalized cross-generational dialogue should be perfect way out. So co-developing robots with both elderly and youth to increase acceptance and longitude studies on robot facilitated intergenerational empathy. So it's kind of future research directions that we should work on this field in case to make our elderly people's life better and more emotionally felt. Okay, of course, artificial intelligence is not a subtitle for human connection, but it's a tool that really helps to enhance our elderly people's life using some robots. And it really, using AI, it really has potential to bridge generational dividers, encourage meaningful conversation, and build more connected and more warm society and more feelingful society. But it's just my personal point of view. So what's we life like only having robots beside us and not humans. So it's time just to hug our beloved ones, our elderly loves, and say, we love you and we will always support you. But still, yeah, it's reality, 21st century reality that robots are needed and we can't go far without them. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. If I'm not mistaken, we have 25 minutes for question? No? This was the last presentation in section 1. Yeah, so we have 25 minutes for Q&A. So my challenge is the following. We have 3 online guests and we have offline guests. Would it make sense to start with our speakers? Is there any comment from any speaker, since you are the experts and you have contributed? Markus, do you have a presentation?
Hello. First of all, thank you and for participating. I'd love to be with you in Budapest, but I'm here in Lugano. I sent my idea for the paper in April, and I don't know why I didn't have any response. Now, 2 weeks ago, Dr. Jano inserted me in this panel, even if my topic was in the 4th section. So I don't know in this moment if I'm in your section or in the 4th section, because my topic was for the 4th section, but I was added to this one. And I was added to in the last moment, and I don't know why, but I'm here.
Marcus, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, now he's muted. Marcus, you're most welcome to join this section. So we are eager to listen to your presentation right now. That's what I heard spectators tell us. Please go ahead, the floor is yours.
I don't want to impose myself and to with force or something like that. Also because originally I had this topic for the 4th section, but I'm very glad to be with you, and I hope we can bring further on this topic also in other occasions, because I think it is a very important topic to reflect on social conditions in general when we use artificial intelligence and so on. So I prepared this presentation. And yes, and I think, in 10 minutes, I will be able to explain you something what I thought about this topic. I'm very grateful to Serena, because she ended with the affirmation that artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human connection, but a tool to enhance it. And I think exactly in the same way. And we should encourage meaningful conversations and build a more connected, compassionate society. What does this mean then in concrete, and which philosophical reflection we can do and on the basis of that? I hope you can see now the presentation, because I would insert this affirmation in a broader view, because the problem of ethics in care is not only that we have to have ethical rules for the robots or for artificial intelligence, because the dimension of care is a human dimension, it's an anthropological dimension, and so there is, but beyond the ethical criterions for technology, the anthropological dimension of ethics. Because the human being is a caring being. Without caring about others, we are not human beings. That's why I put in the center of my reflection 3 authors. I'm not able to explain all 3 authors because I have only a few minutes. These are, for example, Martin Heidegger or Karl Jaspers or Gabriel Marcel, who reflected all 3 on the dimension that without caring about others, we are not fully human being. And so my reflection is, which is the anthropological dimension of elderly care? It is the dimension that we cannot try to find the solution for caring problems only in technologies. The technological dimension has to be embedded in a fundamental human dimension. And if in our societies we have problems to find persons who care about others, because all the sector of care, they have huge and immense problems to find people who engage for others, also professionally, because it is not anymore in the dimensions of a society, which is always more a performing society, a self-performing society, a performing society of subjectivity. And so the tendency to say, oh, we don't have any more person to engage in the care dimension, and so we can demand all these topics to artificial intelligence and to techniques, it leaves us without a fundamental anthropological dimension of all that. So I quote an author, which is a German sociologist, and he said that we go towards a society without pain, without understanding of pain. If we transform pain only to a problem which we can resolve by technologies, so we exclude the dimension of pain, which remembers us of fundamental anthropological dimensions out of our anthropological horizon. So we cannot say, let's use technologies if in our use of technologies, we exclude the dimension of vulnerability, of limitation, of pain out of the horizon of our reality. So are we going towards a society which leaves sufferings only to a medical problem, only to a technological problem, which doesn't have anymore a comprehension of the passivity of suffering? Because the passivity of suffering would have the necessity that we have people who care themselves about the others and who spend times with the others. And even if we use technologies, these technologies have to be embedded in fundamental anthropological and interpersonal relationships. Today we have even new images of pain. We have even people who give pain to themselves, would be, according to this author, also another expression of the narcissism of our society. The cuts, for example, that represent a vain attempt to throw off the load of the ego. So the ego can be a great load, and we try by technologies to get off this load. But we should go towards a dimension in which we remember that we are human beings, and in which we realize the fundamental caring dimension of our of being human beings, also in that dimension of care. And that would require, I think, to stress in the concept of care several dimensions. One is the dimension to give voice to the tension towards transcendence. Transcendence, which could be the religious transcendence, but all spiritual transcendence, but also ethical transcendence towards the other. And to nourish being there with meaning. It is a care that repairs being, both material and spiritual. So can we try to find a caring dimension in which we include new technologies, in which we include the use of new technologies in an anthropological, human-centered relationship, in which we don't forget that when we care about others, it is not the others who have the right of material care, but also of spiritual care. And spiritual care is not only a service we give to others, but it is a relationship. It is an us. It is not only an I and you relationship. And this would embed the reflection of technologies, of artificial intelligence, in a broader anthropological horizon. So we have to distinguish, which we see in the third point, between diverse dimensions of care. First is care as the work of living to preserve life, of course. Then care as the art of existing to make being there flourish. And care as a mending technique to heal the wounds of being there. Care in its essence, therefore, responds to a vital necessity, which includes as ontogenetic necessity, that of continuing to be, an ethical necessity, that of being there with meaning, that we give meaning to the existence of ourselves towards others. And if we help others and we include others into this caring dimension, then we have a broader and more deepened understanding of care. These are, as you see here in some points, the existential or transcendental dimension of the care dimension. And Martin Heidegger was one who stressed and who reflected about this. He said that our being of being's subjects, is expressed globally by the term care. Care is not only an action. Care is not only a profession. Care is the realization of ourselves, which is used in a pure ontological existential sense. And therefore, as Jaspers underlined, the way of acting by the doctor rests on two pillars. On the one hand, scientific knowledge and technical ability. On the other, the humanitarian ethos. The doctor never forgets the dignity of the patient and his decisional autonomy, nor the irreplaceable value of each individual man or woman. So the decisional autonomy, so the idea that we have an autonomous person in front of us, yeah, this is a necessary, I think, ethical dimension in care, which can be that it is forgotten if we only think by adopting technical devices or technical meanings, yeah, we can resolve problems, yeah, which we have because we miss the caring dimension in our society. So the humanitarian aspect of the doctor's ethical experience in its contemporary embodiment therefore passes, according to Jaspers, through the formation not only of technical skills, but above all of his medical personality. And this brings us in the last point to Gabriel Marcel, who connected this dimension of care with the structure of hope. Hope, he says, is always a relationship. We cannot hope alone. So if we leave elderly people alone, these elderly people, in the consequence, won't have any more hope, because hope is structurally something which we can have only together. So we have to reflect on technologies, on artificial intelligence, which is able to include the interdimension, the interpersonal relationship, yeah, in the realization of technologies itself. Yeah. I of course, I'm not pleading to reduce technology, this of course not. And for that I appreciated also what I heard before about the technologies, about the adaptation of technologies in elderly care. Yeah. But I think, yeah, that every time we use this technology, yeah, we should embed it, yeah, we should reflect, we should use them as a means which expresses something, which gives to the elderly person, yeah, the meaning, the sense, the horizon, that there is always another person who takes care of them. I think this relationship, yeah, that when we use technologies, yeah, the elderly person is not only a person which is served by technologies, but it is embedded in an interpersonal relationship. This is very important. And I close here. This is not only important for the elderly person, this is important also for society itself. Because as I began my consideration, yeah, care is a dimension of human beings. Without caring, our society is less human. And so this is also a drive and a perspective and a reason why we should not forget this dimension, because because how we treat older people, how we dedicate ourselves to them is an expression on which level, on which ethical level humanity is realized in our society itself. So I thank you very much. I was the last one before the lunch and I was not in the program. So I thank you really, really much for your patience and for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Now we have 10 minutes left for open floor. So what I will leave with are two images. One is the image where you have the robot helping a person in and out of bed, but there's a human being next to the robot. And then the other image from Jorena's presentation, you have a group of elderly and then interacting with the robot, but there's a community there. And so the robot kind of enhances this experience of the community, but doesn't replace it. So my takeaway from all the presentations is enhance, yes, but not replace. And so it has to assist the human factor. So we have 10 minutes for anything you would like to say or add. At this point, I will not distinguish between speakers and audience. Whoever wants to say something, footnote, comment, question, complaint, the floor is open for anybody. Be you online, be you offline. Anyone? Yes, please. Do you need a mic? Do we have a mic? How does it work? Oh, so you have to go up here. You have to go up here. Yes, you have to be brave and come up here. And please use the mic that everybody can hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I was interpreting everything what I heard today. to my work, and I'm making social therapy for the people with dementia in Germany now, in a home for elderly. And what for me very interesting is that you mentioned that we have a kind of experience of to be impressed. And the other thing, what I am doing, as a matter of fact, is entertaining. So social therapy means for me to move these people, and what I appreciate very much in this work, that these people are emotional, very, very, they move emotional. And cognitive, in the cognitive dimension is, of course, has a deficit. But does it matter, I ask sometimes, because emotional life is so important for them, and they are moving with me. And I made this difference now, today, that to make an impress, to impress these people and to entertain. And I can say that I have sometimes this moment of to impress them. And I find it very, very important and very interesting. The spiritual dimension is very, very important for me, because I think that this generation with whom I work, the spiritual dimension is very important. It is very deeply in their lives, so I can move there, and doesn't matter which religion, doesn't matter at all, because I'm working for a home for elderly, which is evangelical. I'm Catholic, and I have Catholics there, minority, but I find this dimension very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I do believe for a Catholic university, this question, what's the role of religion in those developments, is really an interesting one to further explore. Thank you for the comment. Anyone who wants to comment on this or on anything else? Our online friends, any comments from our online friends? Oh, over here, please, come on up. Yes, I think the prophet has to come to the mountain. We cannot bring the mountain to you. Yes, here you go. That's all right.
Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you, first of all, thank you for your very informative and interesting presentations. I'm from the field of prison and probation, and I would like to ask all of the presenters that are there anybody who are thinking of the idea that bringing the AI technology inside, for example, a prison where the elder prisoners are sentenced?
Thank you so much. So that's a very clear question. Are there any attempts to bring those AI technologies / robots to aging prisoners in jails or the correctional facilities? I'm looking at our speakers here. Markus? No.
I cannot answer to that, but it is a good question, because the problem of technologies, of course, in prisons is a problem, because we are there in a very, very closed ambient. So on the one hand, it could be difficult, but on the other hand, it could also be an interesting reflection to which extent it could be possible. But I did so because I don't really know it. Perhaps Klaus Baumann knows something.
Yes. Thank you so much, Markus. Professor Baumann, please. Floor is yours.
Well, actually, thank you very much to Markus Trinke also, who saw that I raised my hand. I do not know either, but I know it with some foundation because I serve also in jail, and I know that for elderly prisoners there is no AI or robotic assistance yet. It is not planned even, and as you know, prisoners, at least in Germany, they have only very limited access to internet and similar devices. So I think there are a lot of hurdles or obstacles in between. But the idea is very good. I think the lady is is quite right to think also about the elderly care for elderly prisoners who suffer from a lot of psychic and also spiritual limitations.
Thank you so much. I think that's a good point to end. Let us thank our speakers and on this section. Round of applause for everybody. Thank you, Spectabilis. Would you like to have the last word? No, your Hungarian is so amazing. Okay, then enjoy the lunch break, and I think at 2:30 there is this program point about what's the title again of the 2:30 event? Cybathlon. Yes, in the building where you have lunch, correct? At lunchtime there's a presentation. Great. Enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of your lives. Thank you so much.